Today, we're going to talk about ways to avoid some unnecessary work while mixing. Okay, so these are the things that are the not so sexy things that can really help your mix if you're willing to wade through them. They're things that the pros do, and they're also things that solve problems at the source before you reach for that shiny new plugin. These are not secret techniques, but people don't talk about them enough here on the internet, I think. And I think that's because they don't make for super flashy before and after demonstrations. But these are all things that help my mixes come together faster, better, in my opinion, and with less fighting. All right, so number one is gain staging, but it's specifically this rule that you can follow if you want to, where you have things like your audio tracks and your instrument tracks, and you keep those all at a lower level than things like your master fader and your summing buses. So it's kind of about headroom, but it's really about maintaining flexibility while you still find the balance and not ruining your gain staging early in the game, right? So if I switch here to my mix window, so I did command equals, you can see that I have that here. So here's my guitar folder, for example. My two guitar tracks are lower than the aux that they're going to. And if you look at this aux, you can see that it's going to the guitar folder, which is also at 0 on the fader, and it is then going out to the mix bus. So this idea, this rule kind of helps you maintain order with your gain staging and helps you not wreck something before you then move it on to the next stage of things. Because keep in mind, oftentimes we are summing multiple tracks together to go into an aux, and so it makes sense that these would have to be a little bit lower to not then peak or clip or distort when they get summed together to go into the aux, right? And remember that 0 is no change, right? So if we're raising the level here, we are increasing the volume from where it came in. If we are lowering it below 0, then we're bringing it down. So 0 is no change. This is a reduction in volume from the original track. So that's just a rule that people often teach in studios. Like if you're assisting in a studio, they might teach you that rule to kind of just follow as a good gain staging rule that can help you out, help you keep things organized, keep things healthy. And like as a side note, this rule is not going to have you immune to gain staging problems, right? You still have to try to understand and learn about gain staging and have good healthy gain staging at each stage within your signal chain, within your signal flow, but it will help you out a little bit. Number two is automation. We often work so hard to get a static mix to work, but songs are not static. They're meant to tell a story, right? So they often have rising tension and a climax point and release points. They might have multiple climax and release points. They're telling a story. They're meant to change over time. And we often want those shifts in emotion. Automation helps you add layers of detail that boost that storytelling and improves the overall experience for the listener, whether they notice that you did it or not. So you'll notice here, if I do command equals, you can see that I have a ton of automation in this session. And each of these folders has a bunch more automation, right? I have automation on a lot of my aux tracks. I have automation on individual tracks. I have automation on different parameters, on plugins. Things change over time in my mixes. And I do these tiny little changes across multiple different instruments, multiple different parameters, and it helps boost that storytelling for me. So depending on the song, there's more or less automation, but doing a little bit at least will help you really contribute to that storytelling process. Number three is adjusting the clip gain before adding more compression. And this is kind of also within the category of editing before mixing in my mind, but oftentimes we do it during the mixing process. This is also kind of the idea of let's not use the compressor to fix a performance problem, right? Let's adjust the clip gain going in so that we can use the compressor to get the type of effect that we want. It's kind of like painting in my mind. So each stroke that we make, whether that's adjusting clip gain or changing compressor settings or what have you, contributes to this whole picture that we're hearing. We don't want one giant stroke with just one color. And that's what, to me, it feels like sometimes when you don't adjust clip gain and you just go straight to nothing but compression. All right, so I have a few more things on this list, but first I just want to say that this video is sponsored by me. So if you'd rather not deal with all the technical stuff, you'd rather have professional help from a professional audio engineer and music producer, please feel free to hit me up. It's CatoNoise.com, and I have a get started button where you can just hit that button. It asks you like 3 or 4 questions about your music, and then it takes you to a calendar page. And on the calendar page, you can book a call with me. It's a free, no obligation call. It's just to see if we're a good fit, if we might want to work together. So especially if you're in one of the genres that I tend to work in, I would love to hear from you. I tend to work in indie pop and alt rock, and with the alt rock, it sometimes leans a little folky. With the indie pop, I sometimes lean very electronic, almost into like the EDM world. With the indie pop stuff, I also tend to do a lot of like moody, dark, warm beats with like a lot of reverb and delay. I sometimes describe it as cinematic pop for those reasons, right? And then I also, because of that type of beat, that type of work that I tend to work on, I also work on a good amount of hip hop. So if you're especially in any of those realms, I would love to hear from you. All right, number 4 is to make quick decisions and then sometimes come back later to refine them. This helps you go with your gut, and it also helps you go with the emotion of the song. So this works because early in the mix, you're usually responding to the song, to the emotion, whereas later in the mix, you're kind of responding to the process more. You lose track of things and you get too focused on the micro details. And the goal here is not to be reckless, don't get me wrong. It's to capture that initial reaction while you're still listening emotionally. And look, you can always refine a decision later. I'm constantly doing that, but it's really hard to regain perspective when you've listened to the same chorus 50 times. Number 5 is to pan before EQing. And that's so you can know whether something really needs to be sculpted more, or is it just overlapping with something else spatially? I just feel like sometimes when two instruments are fighting each other, our first instinct is to start carving out frequencies, but sometimes the solution is not just EQ. Sometimes it's just that the two instruments are occupying the same space in the stereo field or close to the same space. So this one's really just the idea that sometimes a small panning move can really reveal whether you have a tonal problem or you have a positioning problem. And you know, if moving something slightly really solves the issue, then you've learned something really important about the mix before you've even reached for an EQ, which is kind of cool. So that's the whole list. But one bonus item that I think kind of ties things together nicely is arrangement awareness. And that's just knowing when it is not the mix, right? You might have two instruments that are fighting each other. You might have a chorus that's a bit too dense. You might, for example, have like a lead guitar line that's fighting the vocal melody. Sometimes the best move is just muting or simplifying something. And I feel like this might be the most important one, honestly, because it extends past just the mix, right? I feel like every mixer has had that experience where you spend like 20 minutes trying to fix something just to realize that it's not the mix at all. It's something about the production that should be adjusted really to fix it. I think in a lot of ways, and I'll probably think of some example where this is not the case at all after filming this, but I think in a lot of ways, mixing can only reveal what's already there. So sometimes the fastest way to improve a mix is to just change the arrangement, simplify a part, or mute something entirely. And I think that might be the common thread that's running through all these ideas. I think sometimes the biggest improvements come from making better decisions and not necessarily from adding more processing. So that's it for today. Again, this video is sponsored by me. So if you'd rather have help from a professional on your music, working with all this technical stuff, right? Audio engineering, music production. I do recording, mixing, mastering, and full production services. Please feel free to hit me up. It's CatoNoise.com. You can hit the get started button to book a call with me. No obligation call. It's a free call. It's just to see if we're a good fit, see if we might want to work together. And especially if you're in any of my genres, which I mentioned earlier in this video, please feel free to hit me up. I would love to talk to you. And I also have a song release checklist that is online. I believe it's go.catonoise.com/song release checklist. I'll put a link to it below, and I'll also put it on the screen for you to see it. And that's a free checklist. You can go check it out. I put that information together. I started working in commercial studios a little over 20 years ago, and I've kind of been collecting that information, seeing what works and what doesn't work, working with people all the way from like top tier artists to indie artists. And I've seen what people tend to do, what tends to work, what tends to help, and put the song release checklist together so that, you know, you could have a better chance at your song release. Like, you put so much work into making the song, why not put a little bit of extra work into the song release so that you can give the song the best odds that it can have? So that's kind of the idea behind my song release checklist. And other than that, I have a Patreon. So it's patreon.com/CatoNoise, and my patrons get access to additional content. We have some early release videos on there. We have a Discord server that we're all hanging out on. We got a book club on the Discord server, which is one of my favorite things. And thank you so much to my Patreon patrons, because they help me keep this channel independent, which is very important to me. And I think that's it. I come out with new videos on Wednesdays, and thank you so much for hanging out. Okay. Okay, I'm sweating my butt off, so I'm gonna run away now. I feel like I had things to tell you, and now I can't remember them because I'm sweaty and it's disgusting and it's gross. I'm gonna turn on the air. I'm gonna run away. Okay, I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're surviving the summer. It's too hot for me. I'm a pansy. Okay, bye. Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry. I almost forgot. I wanted to show you my shirt. It's got a ghost with a butt. It's a ghost with a butt. Isn't he cute? It says ghoul vibrations on here too. Okay, bye.